Hi, everyone. If you're getting prepared and tuning in, hi, everyone. If you're know that we are on our way. And
minus 50 seconds. Minus 40 seconds. Minus 30 seconds. Minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
hey, everybody, it's your girl Queenie. We are ready to start. Let me get my camera on. And let me find everyone out there on Facebook today. Our guests are here. It's really nice. I know y'all can't see me, but give me 1 second. I'm actually going to be coming on screen in like a half a second here. Hey, y'all. I'm trying to get my Facebook up. I know I have some of my, I have my guests in the waiting room. I am going to pull them in a moment, but I wanted to take the time, one, so everyone can kind of get into the space, get into the room, and get prepared for this, and also to just talk with the viewers. So welcome to the Relationship Zone, the podcast. I am your host, Queenie Love, and today we're talking about something that's near and dear to me, which is grief. I have a few notes here that I will be kind of reading from, so bear with me if it seems a little unusual that I'm reading. It's just because this is a very emotional topic, and I hope you guys can hear me. Let me see if I can find you on Facebook really quick, because I need to be able to watch as you all come into the room. Make sure everyone can hear me. So good to see that our guests are here. They are ready. All right, let's see what's happening here. Okay, I see it. I hear myself too. Hey, everybody. All right, to my guests, I see you. I'm coming to get you, I promise. Wait for me. Don't go anywhere. Um, I want to quickly read some of these bios. I want to formally kind of introduce my folks because they are awesome and I'm honored to have them here with me. All right, so first I want to go ahead and read the bios of our professionals that are here with us today. One, I'm so happy to be able to bring to you these amazing professionals that work in the mental health space. So I want to go ahead and I will be inviting them both in really quick. Okay, all right, I got them. I'm bringing them in. I am bringing in. Okay, all right, I got them. I'm bringing them in. All right, got her. There we go. So I'm bringing in Miss Sharon Lawrence. And I'm going to read her bio. So you guys just bear with me as I read this. So Sharon has this really big bio, right? Because she's awesome. She's doing amazing things. And I literally had to just pull a few things out of her bio. But trust me, there's so much more than what I'm going to read. There's so much more to Sharon. Miss Sharon Lawrence is the founder, owner, and lead therapist of Selah Wellness and Therapeutic Services, LLC, a virtual practice in the states of Maryland and Florida. She is also the CEO of SJL Professional Services, which focuses on corporate, professional, and individualized coaching, speaking, and training related to diversity, wellness, communication, conflict resolution, and leadership staff development. Ms. Lawrence is an author, national speaker, presenter, trainer, and blogger. Her published works include 7 Simple Ways to Shape Your Marriage, Strategies to Feeling Loved and Connected, which helps couples refocus on the importance of working together with a stronger commitment to another, and the My Everything Gratitude Journal, 31-day gratitude journal for self-care and empowerment with bonus goal setting guide, bonus goal setting guide. She is the creator of Desserts and Discussions, the tour, which focuses on speaking at area churches, businesses, and organizations on topics related to mental health, women's empowerment, marital enrichment, motivating entrepreneurs, and personal growth. And that's probably all I'm going to read about Sharon, but I will tell you this, Sharon is also a friend, and she's been like this mainstay of Bar Talks discussions. And also she's constantly helping me, keeping me encouraged with Relationship Zone. And she's visited and sat with us several times on this podcast. So Sharon, I want to thank you for joining us today. Welcome again to the Relationship Zone podcast with your girl, Queenie.
Thank you, Queenie. I appreciate it. I'm really glad to be with you.
We're going to move forward and I'm going to read my next professional who is joining us. We have Mr. Chris McNeil. Chris. Hi, Chris. Hey. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine. How are you all doing?
Doing well. I am reading your bio, so give me one moment, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
All right, perfect. So Chris McNeil, Chris is currently earning his doctorate in education from Field and Graduate University. Chris, in his bio, shared that he is employed, just so y'all know, but Chris is employed as a licensed as a qualified mental health professional for adults and children in Virginia. He's working in the mental health skill building and crisis prevention program. Chris is also the founder of Familyversity, LLC, and Trust the Process Consulting, which is an empowerment, awareness, and literacy program aimed at addressing poverty, mental illness, dysfunctional families, and individuals affected by Black father absence. Chris travels to lecture, inspire, console, and bring awareness to these issues. Chris also hosts a podcast called The Check-In, which further addresses issues and discusses solutions to generational issues in Black families and beyond. Everyone, please welcome Chris McNeil to the Relationship Zone, the podcast. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Good morning or afternoon now.
Yeah, well, it's morning for me. I am still out here in Texas. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm so glad to have you both with us. I'm going to be bringing in our other guests. I wanted to make sure I introduce the you guys because I know that this is the field of work that you're in. Mental health matters. And so I felt like, hey, why not bring you guys in here first? So I can personally say thank you for joining me because this is really personal to me. So I appreciate having you both here for this discussion.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I am going to
Yeah.
bring in our guest, our other guest, and I want to read a bit about both of them. So let's go. So for those that are watching, see, I want you guys to catch it. These people are amazing. This discussion today should be really awesome. All right, so I'm watching Facebook from my phone. So if you happen to see something come through that I don't catch, let me know, grab my attention and let me know, okay? Just for now while I'm doing this reading. Hi, Jovita, welcome.
Hey, everybody.
Hi,
Hello.
Ken, welcome.
Hello. Good
Hi.
afternoon, everyone.
Good
Hello.
afternoon. Good afternoon. So I want to quickly just read a bit about both of our guests that I just brought into the room. And I know people may be wondering, how did I choose who I wanted to talk or discuss grief with? I was very, very selective and intentional. And when I look around the room and I see each of you, I understand why I chose you as well. In the beginning, it was just like, well, who's courageous enough to talk about it? And then when I began to hear your stories and hear your perspective and your experience, I realized that this is why. So Jovita, I want to start with you and I want to just say welcome.
Thank you.
Jovita Fenwick is currently a social worker for the Fulton County Public Defender's Office in Atlanta, Georgia. She is pursuing her master's in social work from the University of Massachusetts. She is a 20-year retired Army veteran. She is a mother of 4 young adults. She was married for 24 years before becoming a widow in January 2021. So welcome, Jovita, to the Relationships on the podcast.
Thank you, Queenie.
Also, I would like to welcome Mr. Ken Moorman. Mr. Ken Moorman is the founder of the award-winning Girani Coffee, located in Old Town Manassas. He is a community leader, a dynamic speaker, business consultant, and real estate expert. This United States Army veteran embodies the definition of hard work, dedication, and humble beginnings. He's a husband, father of 2. Ken's determination to live out his dream of becoming an entrepreneur places him at the forefront to be able to pull what people may feel will never happen out of their dreams. Ken is also an author of On the Other Side of My Dreams. It's a compelling story of triumph and victory. Ken shares his entrepreneur journey from childhood to pursuing and accomplishing his dream. And he also shares a personal experience with grief after the loss of his son and a few other key players in his life. So I want to welcome you, Ken Moorman, to the Relationships on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Queen.
All right, everybody, let's get this going. Let me pull down all of my notes so I can actually see everybody. There we go. So listen, I am not at home, of course, and so I don't have my screens and I don't have any of that. I'm truly working off of my one computer and cell phone. So for those that are watching, if it's like, oh wait, Queenie seems to be out of place. Well, it's because I'm not in my place. So you're right, I am a little out of place. But I felt, hi Jack, I see Jack, everyone's like in the chat here. I felt that this conversation was due. And I personally am still going through my grief process, but I wanted to talk about what grief looks like for all of us, our experiences, and understanding that it's unique to each individual person. I made quite a few notes over here because I don't want to miss anything. So if I am reading, that's why, because I've made all these notes and I didn't want to miss anything. So I want to start this conversation by sharing a little bit about my why. And then I want to open up the conversation to each one of you as well. So in my experience, I know that we go through, especially when you're learning and you're studying psychology or, sociology, you learn about grief cycles and the theory of it. And so I thought I had the tools, right, to understand grief and to balance and to handle any kind of grief that came my way, any type of loss that came my way. But when I lost my father last year, in 2020, I realized that that was not the truth. That was not the case. I did not manage it. I didn't have the 5 little steps. I didn't go through it quite that way. Instead, I experienced a lot of depression and just I just felt so disconnected, and people really could not say anything to pull me out of it. And one thing that one of our guests today, which is Sharon, said early on, when I don't think she even knew it, I was really that I was struggling as bad as I was, but Sharon said to me to give myself time, take all the time you needed, because I was pressuring myself to jump back in to living. And when Sharon said that to me, honestly, Sharon, I think I've told you this, it stayed with me my entire journey. And when I felt down and I felt like I couldn't, and I felt the pressure of the world, being such a socialite, I was beating myself up and I just couldn't get out of it. I kept hearing your words. And I think I've thanked you for those words. People didn't understand, but you knew the right thing to tell me. And it did not allow me to snap out of it. It actually allowed me to sit with it. And I needed to sit with it. I need to face it. And so I want to just personally say thank you again for that. But in that experience, I realized that was really what I needed most of all at that time. And later on, as my year or so battling with grief kind of continued, there were other things that I needed, and I was able to add on. But the one thing I needed most of all was permission to grieve. So thank you. So with that being said, Sharon, I want to start with you. Why was that so important, and why is giving yourself or allowing yourself permission to grieve? Why is that so important?
We have been so conditioned to kind of work through things quickly, to jump to the next thing. And so with that being said, you don't give yourself the permission to feel. You don't give yourself permission to be in that moment. It's as if you think something's wrong if you're in that moment or that place, even for a short amount of time. I'm not even referring to when it's a long period of time. I'm talking about even a short amount of time. It's like, no, this is not right. We have to move. We got to come out of this because I'm needed here and I have to do this and this needs my attention and I have to get this done and I have to do on this date. And the reality is that that stuff is going to be there whether you rush through this or not. And if you're not here altogether, this stuff is going to still be sitting. And so in order to really learn how to work through something, you have to allow yourself to go through it. You don't learn anything. You don't allow yourself to heal. If you're rushing through it, you never make the true connection to what has actually happened and how it actually impacts you. So giving yourself that space and that permission really is not about anyone else. I mean, you can communicate effectively what it is you're going through. They may understand, they may not, but it really is about you. And I wrote down permission before you actually said permission. You have to give yourself that permission to do that, because so often we think it's about other people. No, this is your journey and you have to be willing to take it, whether it's uncomfortable or not. Oh, you're muted, Queenie.
I got it. Thank you. And I believe that to be true. I believe it to be the case. So for anyone else, this is a free space. This is a safe space. We're talking about something that's heavy, but I believe that we have to create safe and acceptable spaces for people to have these discussions. I am known for having uncomfortable conversations on my podcast. This is no different. So Jovita, Ken, Chris, please add anything that you choose to that thought about giving permission to grieve. And were you given permission to grieve?
Mhm.
Yeah, I know for me, I didn't have a lot of people in my space giving me permission to grieve. In my house, it's just me and my 2 daughters. My 2 sons are gone. So that's what my life consisted of, just me, my husband, and my 4 kids. So when my husband passed away, my boys were away in the military, and I instantly became a single mom, right? And as a single mom, I didn't have that single mom community for somebody to tell me, Jovita, slow down. Like this, you gotta slow down. Instantly, my brain went into, oh my gosh, I have to pay the bills, I have to get the kids to school, my son is in the military, okay, I have to do my will, my brain, I went into panic mode instantly of how am I going to prepare myself for my kids. So in the beginning, I didn't slow down. I ran until I crashed. And then when I crashed, I stayed there wailing in my bed with my 2 girls for days until I was like, okay, this is what people mean when they say slow down. This is what people mean when they say take their time. So I had to give my permission to myself. Okay, Jovita, you're not going to survive if you keep running like this. So that's how my permission came.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Yeah, for me, I think I was blessed to have so many people around me and supporting me, and they gave me permission. I just needed to give myself the permission. For me, my mom passed in 2015 while I was, working on my dream and building out a coffee house and community, and it was awesome. And then my mom passed. So I immediately didn't give myself, that time, and I poured it into building out this coffee house and in the community. And then the next year on Christmas night, my oldest son passed, and that almost wiped me out just emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't know what to do. And I know a lot of men deal with this because I got a younger son, a younger daughter, my family. I'm feeling I have to be strong for them because they're a mess, rightfully so, after my son passed. And I'm trying to figure out the whole time, I'm like, I need help. Like, I need to take some time for me, and work and community was hitting hard, and everything was from the outside looking in, looked great, but just how, as a man, as a father, I keep all this together when I know when I let go, I'm going to let go. And I don't know, what's going to happen. And it took me a while, but then it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping at all. I wasn't, I was in my basement all the time. So, it took the time from me. I wish I would have got ahead of it and properly prepared, but when it hit down, I was no good to no one, but everyone was just waiting on it. They knew it was going to happen eventually. And then just going through that process of like, I need this time. I need a lot of time.
Yeah.
But, life was going, and I'm pretty sure everyone always can kind of like agree. For me, I'm like, I was yelling out, do y'all know what happened to me? Everyone's going a mile a minute. And I'm like, y'all don't understand. And like I'm standing on 66 or 495, just yelling like, do y'all get it? And then I really had to reel that in. And take some time for me and let the world do what it do. And I kind of see how life continues on. It's built that way. And this is my journey. I had to accept it. And I'm still accepting it. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, those are all stories of we are beginning to heal. Because I'm going to talk about the 5 stages or levels of grief, and the last stage, pretty much, well, not the last stage, you have another stage called finding meaning after you've gone through those 5 stages. But the stage that I'm talking about is acceptance. And when we get to the acceptance stage, that is a stage where we can't do anything about the circumstances. It's almost you're facing it, okay, so-and-so's not coming back. And I'm going to go to this in more detail, but when you get to the acceptance stage, that's when you really begin to heal, because the other 4 stages can come in different times. And a lot of us get stuck in denial. We get stuck in anger. We get stuck in depression, and we get stuck in bargaining. But when we get into acceptance, that's when you can start healing, because you know you can't heal what you won't face or confront. And it's almost like you're putting your head in the sand, or you have something under the rug, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, so we don't confront that. And as a people, as Black people or skin folk, we choose other ways to escape the pain, i.e. alcohol, i.e. drugs, i.e. eating, or some other way of comforting the loss. And, when we talk about loss is the state of feeling of grief when deprived of something or someone of value. And this grief cycle, especially around this time of year, and I'm going to talk about that, it is very, very stressful for individuals. And I know recently in September, I lost my grandmother, and just this week I lost my great aunt. So it's real fresh for me right now. But grief is something that we've all dealt with through the diaspora, through the enslavement of Africans, our ancestors, and even through the Jim Crow. We've all suffered grief and loss. And even into, when even in the Great Migration, where we came from the South to the North for better opportunities. And then when the war happened and the boys came back, they were out of jobs. So we had deindustrialization hit our communities. So as a people, we've been dealing with grief and loss for years. And, some of that fallout is high blood pressure in most of our young men. I read a study where out of 600 men they studied, 574 of them were chronic high blood pressure. And that comes from the trauma that trauma that's passed down genetically. And we've just never had I can remember when I was a kid, and I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I just remember when I was a kid and they came in and told the news that my father was killed, and I was 5 years old. That sting still stays with me, even though I've went through the bargaining, even though I went through the denial, even though I went through anger and all those stages. It's like an incomplete diagram that all the other ones can work, but when you get to acceptance, and that's when you really start to heal. And as a 5-year-old, we didn't really have the vehicles or people that look like you and me for someone to go to feel comfortable enough to air out our feelings. So I'm glad for this forum that we have today that we can make that happen.
I absolutely agree with you. I just think that grief it hits us all different. And what I want most from this conversation is anyone that hears it, anyone that views it, anyone that shares it, that one, it's relatable, right? They know that they're not alone if they felt any of the things that we share, or even how to help their friends and family as they're trying to cope with loss, right? And loss come in so many different ways. Right now we're all in the midst of a pandemic and losses everywhere, whether it's personal or whether it's your family or whether it's just the person that's serving, the coffee at the coffee shop, right? Just you realize they're not there anymore. And then you're also trying to deal with all of your own losses. And then I also think that the losses wake up, past losses. So you're constantly in a state of grief, many of us. Some of us master numbness, so we think, right? And that's toxic to the body because it shows up in other ways. And I just hope that if people are watching or listening to this, and so for those if you're watching, please share it. I hope that we are able to reach someone that may be grieving and someone that may be hurting with sharing our stories, sharing our experience, talking about it from a clinical point of view and from a personal perspective, because grief is real. And so what I would love to do with Jovita and with Ken, with both of you, is if you could quickly just, I did not bother to go into all the details of your loss and the grief and how it's affected you both. But if you could just share a little bit about your story, I would appreciate that. And then of course I want to open the floor up to our mental health professionals so that they can kind of just talk and bring things into perspective as well.
Yeah.
Jovita, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I know for me, Dan and I have been married for 24 years. We're both retired military. We've got combat tours. We got 4 young adults. We did a deployment together. When we got to Washington, we started doing a marriage ministry. Just really helping the community. Dan was working with at-risk kids. I was working with the homeless community as a social worker. He was with Job Corps and a mission counselor. So we were really community people, whether we were doing it from employment or whether we were doing it in a church. Our hearts have always been for the people. And he was such a jovial person, right? And Dan loved everybody. Everybody was his friend. Even I would tell him, everybody is not your friend. You know, you could not tell that man that everybody was not his friend, right? So his impact and his reach on the community and the people was so big. And this was a devastating loss for a lot of people. So we moved to Georgia 2 years ago. And in January 2021, honestly, Dan went in for gallstones. He was just uncomfortable, went in for gallstones on January 6th, and they found an aneurysm. And due to COVID, I couldn't be there. So January 6th, he went from just the urgent care, our local doctor here, to Emory. And January 25th is when he passed. So they allowed me to see Dan one time, which was January 18, Martin Luther King Day. They let the families come in. So just due to COVID, which was a completely different experience, at that time we had a son who was away in the military, and I still had a senior who was going to graduate in a couple months, and I had my 2 daughters here. So Dan has always been very impactful on the community and so big to my kids. So when he passed on January 25th, it was so unexpected. So we had an unexpected death to my husband. But instantly, when you get that phone call, right? I remember I was talking to somebody, and like Ken said earlier, people are waiting for you to completely fall or whatever they're waiting for, right? They're just looking at you waiting, right? Like, how is she doing this? What's going on? And so when that happened, I just started, all that happened, and you got to make these phone calls, right? You can't even instantly grieve, because you now instantly have to call the mom, the dad, the brothers, the sister. You got to call everybody, so you don't get to feel the impact of it until you've made all these necessary phone calls. And then you got to deal with the kids. And somebody asked me, where did you lose your faith? And as I processed that over the past, it's been 9 months for me. And for me, and faith has been a struggle. I said, I lost my faith at the phone call when they called and said, Jovita, there's nothing else we can do. And that's where I lost my faith. So the faith journey is also a struggle with me. My kids are completely gone with that, but that's my story of becoming a widow, becoming a single mom. I've never been a single mom. I've always had somebody. Like Ken said, waking up, I'm still getting up at 3:30 in the morning. Even taking melatonin extended tabs, I still wake up at 3:30 in the morning, ready to watch TV and conquer the world, right? But then I fall back to sleep. So the journey, I'm only 9 months in, and I have a lot of widows who, I've done a lot of support groups. I'm in a Widow Strong group, which is wonderful. Those church groups, even though my faith is still struggling, I'm still in the church group because it's familiar to me, right? You go to what's familiar. So that's my journey of losing my husband and my kids losing their dad and me becoming a widow and a single mama.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for trusting this space with your story. Ken, would you like to share a little bit about yours?
Yeah, I think, sorry if I jumped the gun earlier, but I'm gonna go back a little bit. So I lost my father in 2009, and I still to this day, I never know if I don't know, I think because he was older, and somewhere in my heart, I felt like he lived, so it wasn't such a hard hit as when my mom passed. And, and I was just simply, she in Philadelphia area, and my sister was there, and she just gave a call, hey, mom's having a procedure, you guys might want to come, just make sure she's cool. I'm like, all right, I jump in the car, and I get to the hospital thinking to see my sister. I'm the youngest, my sister and older brother there, and no one's there. And then I'm walking up looking for the room, and I see him pull a curtain. And I walk up, there's a priest outside, and he was like, oh, your mom passed, and I'm just like, what, wait, no preparation, no, just boom. And then I'm thinking, okay, I got to turn around, watch my older, like you were saying, Jovita, my older brother and sister walk out of this elevator, and I got to tell them, you know, mom is gone. And that was just it was just boom. She had a pulmonary embolism, you know, from a procedure that she was going through. And then, so that was tough. And then right after that, the next year, my son got hit by a car walking down the street, not too far from his mother's house. He was 21. And I mean, he was a junior, and it was just, I'm like, this is, and it was just amazing, the love and from the community. And this guy he was loving on people. I mean, 2,000 people showed up, and it's tough when you're going through all this, and then you get all this love that you have to manage somehow, because it's so much, because you want to hide. And I'm still getting a lot of love, right? You put love out, love returns, right? So it's still coming in. And even since then, lost my auntie and uncle were like grandparents. I didn't grow up with grandparents. They passed before I knew them. You know, they passed. Another auntie passed, and they were all older, but key figures in my life. And it's like, whoo, this thing is something. And still just having to navigate through it. And then Queenie, like you said, there are some numbing periods. I thank God I can tell when I'm numb, so I can kind of like pull out of that and kind of get the help, or just face it. But it has been a journey. And I know, like most of you, I have to make sure, for one, everyone's biggest fear is losing your child. And God forbid, if you experience that, you realize why. It's a reason why God blocked us from being able to imagine it, because it is all of that, and it's tough. But this is, you just need people. You need the support. I'm just allowing people. I know we'll probably talk about it, but new people in your life show up, and you gotta let them do what they do. They're on assignment. I have people who literally told me, I'm assigned to you, and they take me out, and they've been doing it for the last 5 years. Different people, and has truly blessed me. So the art of facing and allowing these new people. The ones that's been there, they're gonna be there, and then they're gonna move on. And then in your mind, you'll be wondering, like, you still moved on, and you know what I'm dealing with? That's fine. The new people showing up that can handle this heaviness, this different type.
That's good, Ken. That's really good, Ken.
That is so true. Sharon, I want to pivot to you, because you are a therapist to the therapist. And one thing I see you do is take time for yourself. You really are very intentional. And I learned a lot from watching you do it and hear you say it. So I know, even with grief, I know you have experienced your own grief. I want to hear, and you to contribute to this particular portion of the conversation. How does a therapist manage their own grief while helping so many others?
It's interesting. There's this new thing that people keep talking about, is they understood the assignment. And I understand the assignment. And I'm not saying I don't go through stuff. Oh, I go through stuff. It's interesting. I'm actually in a grieving process from moving from Maryland to Florida. Like, it's taken me a year and almost a half. Everybody's like, get over it. I'm like, I am grieved because I love Maryland. And and that's in addition to regular loss. I've been losing folks literally since I was born. My twin died 7 days after we were born. My grandmother passed early on. My mother passed. My father passed. I've had special aunts and cousins who have passed. And it's interesting that depending on the relationship, the grief can feel different, right? And even with jobs, I remember leaving a job, and I cried every time one of the staff would text me to check on me. and I was like, oh, get it together. And I was like, no, girl, do you? Again, it's about the permission to understand that you were not exempt from life. I talk about this a lot. I do an ethics course every quarter, and I have to remind clinicians that they are not exempt from experiencing anything. Just because you have a skill set to work with people does not mean that it's something you said earlier, understand versus the experience, right? And it reminds me of when you're going for a job interview. And a lot of times they will hire you if you have the knowledge of something, like you understand about that area, but you haven't had a chance to, kind of get in there and execute it, but they're willing to teach you as long as you have knowledge of it, right? This is that same thing. Many people may have the knowledge of it, but it's very different once you experience it, right? Because now you have to try and implement and understand how it applies to you while you're also dealing with your feelings. So you're kind of in this limbo. And so it really is about, as a clinician, for me, it's understanding the assignment. It's about understanding that I have to always give myself permission. It's about walking in my truth, but it's not about making other people walk in my truth. It really is my assignment to myself. People are going to do what they're going to do. Like I said before, it's about how you communicate what it is you're going through, but you can't force your experience onto someone else because everyone's experience is different. And so it really is about that permission and having that safe space to be able to set those boundaries so you can heal. I took a break from people, but I told them why. Hey, I just need a minute. Oh, we haven't heard from you. I'm mad at you. I'm really sorry. I don't know what to tell you to do about you being mad at me and I'm going through. I'm not sure how you want me to now carry that. I can only focus on what I have on my plate. And I think that's really what it's about, being able to just focus what's in front of you. When you think about waiters and waitresses, they are trained to come out with plates and get them where they need to go. They are not trained to stand there for hours on end, just with plates in their hand. They're not meant to hold all of that, and neither are we. We are not meant to hold it all at the same time. You have to be willing to put some things down and deal with them gradually as they're coming to you.
Oh, Sharon Lawrence, she's so
Sharon.
and it's so true, everything you said. And I kept telling myself that when I was going through, right? So I feel you, Jovita. I feel you, Ken, right? I lost my dad, right? And these relationships are different. We deal with all these losses, and I too, we all can share the story about how many people we lost along the way, but there are certain deaths that just hit different. And I posted something today about the significance of relationships and how grief may hit you different depending on how significant that relationship was. And another reason why this conversation is so important and so necessary for me personally, and for so many people that I know that are sitting around trying to figure out, how do I deal with this, what I'm feeling, and how do I help others, and thinking they're alone and trying to be quiet and putting on a mask. I put on a mask for over a year, running out in front of my friends because y'all, the ones that know me, y'all know that I'm like super fun and, love being out there. I'm invited to all the places, huge socialite, I'm doing all the things. And even after my father, I was still trying to do all of that. And I was dying inside. And like you said, Ken, you use the analogy of on, like the I-10 or I-95. For me, I felt like I was in a grave and I was covered up and my friends were still expecting me to show up. And, like you were speaking, Jovita, after the cards and after the food and after taking care of all the legal and after dealing with the family, after the funeral, after all the flowers stopped coming to the house, and, after I drank so many times, so many margaritas and so many lemon drops with my friends, right? After I hosted so many events, still I would go home and I would struggle and I could barely breathe because my dad's absence was so huge. And I'll go back to you, Ken. It really took two things to happen to help me to realize, one, that I had been grieving, and two, as Chris said, I could move into a space of acceptance. And the first thing was what Sharon told me in the very beginning. And I remember us having this conversation. It was such a blur, right? But we had this conversation. She said what she said to me. I began to give myself permission to just feel all of this stuff. And then the last thing was I had people in my life that couldn't really see it. And I don't know if I really wanted them to, I don't know what I wanted from them, but I know they just couldn't get it, right? Because they were so used to seeing me as Queenie and not the girl that was depressed from losing her father, the girl that did not want to get up, the girl that laid in her bed with migraines, suddenly stricken with migraines and could not get up, the girl that no longer found fun in cooking, no longer found fun in going to those places, no longer found fun in podcasting, no longer found fun in building other people up. This was the girl, and they were not able to really hold that, right? And I get it. I don't know if I wanted them to, but I think I wanted it to be okay, not to be okay. And I'm sorry if I'm breaking up, guys, but I wanted to be, I want it to be okay, not to be okay. And people just never really made me feel like it was. I never really had a safe space without someone trying to fix it until I met a stranger. And the stranger, just like a stranger, got it. Saw, and I was able to just be Queenie, the person that was grieving the loss of her father. And that helped me to move into the cycle or the phase of acceptance. And that's when I realized in acceptance that this was a necessary conversation to have. And I needed to have other people to talk about.
I'm about to say, that goes back to Ken saying the new people, right?
The new people, yeah, I needed the new people.
The new people.
I needed the new people.
Yeah. Because from my past, people are, even now, Jovita's strong, she'll get over it. And I'm like, but I don't want to be strong. Like, I don't want to be strong. Like, I don't want to be strong. So the new people, I get to be crying and bawling and a mess because this is the season they know me. So when Ken said new people, I was like, yes, the new people. And I just said this on Facebook, it's the new people that are going to help you shape your new identity, right? So I get it, Queenie and Ken, the new people.
The new people. You know, that whole, I'm sorry, that whole process is really drilled in the concept that we really can't live without each other. Like we just can't. I mean, and once that started baking in, then like I said, I started allowing people to do more for me. Especially if I'm called to love. I'm loving on people. I'm the guy. Something happened to you tragically, I'm in the back corner, just in your peripheral. Now, I need people in my peripheral all the time, and I do want to say for all of you that lost recently, like within a year, it's been 5 for me, but for my son, but for you to be on this platform, God bless you. That's it. Sometimes you got to find like markers so you know that you're healing on something. To get on here and even try to talk is just amazing. I'm saying it for myself too. I had a friend of mine say, "Well, can't give yourself a break, man. It's only been 4 or 5 years since you lost your son. 4 or 5 years, and that's not a long time for your baby, right? Or your daddy, or your husband, or your whatever, So you do got to give yourself that time. I just wanted to come back to that.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so I want to ask the therapists and the mental health professionals in the room, when you are the support of someone that's grieving, right? Can you just like what can that person do, or what can that person be? Or I already know what they shouldn't say. Like for me, they're telling me that my dad is in a better place. Pissed me off. Can I just tell you? I'm gonna be honest. It pissed me off. Like I don't want to hear that because I was angry and I was blaming and I was bitter, and I don't want to hear that my best friend, my father, is in a better place. I don't care how faithful you are, and that's just where I was at. So can we just talk about that, because I hear friends and others pushing people out of their sadness and out of their grief because they're uncomfortable, as you said, Sharon. How can we show up different for other people?
I'm gonna let Chris do this, and I'll piggyback. Go, Chris.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I see you felt me there, fellow clinician. I would say that, especially in our community, grief and loss is definitely felt, but it's not addressed.
Right.
It's not addressed in a healthy way. And what I'm feeling on this call is the end of all of us that have experienced grief and loss, we've experienced it in a healthy manner, or else we wouldn't be on this call.
Okay.
So I contribute after two things. One, that you allow new people in your circle, and you allow new people to help nurture you and help you along this way. And I always say that we have to tell people no, because no is a complete sentence. It doesn't need an explanation, especially when you're healing and trying to get to a place that you were before this occurred. And with the stages of grief, we don't have individuals around us to help process our feelings in a proper way. When individuals come up to you and say, oh, they're in a better place, they're not suffering anymore, I'm about 2 seconds from going upside your head.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Real talk.
because this is when and you've all felt this, when you are trying to grieve and process feelings that there's no blueprint for, you have a short fuse, and you're highly sensitive to anything that comes your way. So it's important for people to know not to say anything. And that's why I always say, what can you really say to someone who just experienced a severe loss? The only thing I say is support, nonverbal communication,
Okay.
which is 80% of our conversation and our feeling anyway, is 80% nonverbal, 20% verbal. So I would say, just support the person and be there for them when they need you.
Mm-hmm.
And when the time comes, when the platform is set, like, hey, you can bounce stuff off me. Just put the offer out there. That's pretty much all you can do. It's like, hey, I'm here for you. Let me know if you need anything.
Yeah.
And there's really not much to say. It's a loss. And most of our people self-medicate with drugs. They self-medicate with alcohol. They get around the wrong people because that's the energy. I mean, you're seeking for a solution. And, when we talk about individuals, I'm not trying to get off the subject, but we talk about individuals who experience and engage in self-injurious behaviors, what they tell me is that when I cut myself, the pain is leaving my body when I see the blood coming out of my arm. So another way they try to figure to take the pain away is to numb it. Numb it with alcohol, numb it with drugs. But the bad thing about that is when you come off of that numbness, you're still faced with the issue at hand, which is the loss. So we end up, and this can end up being an abusive thing too, because when you have abuse, and you haven't healed from that, you have a tendency to recreate that behavior and repeat it. And we hurt our family members and friends instead of being transparent and open about our feelings and heal up. We end up beating up individuals that are close to us, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So we should take a step back and acknowledge, more employers are becoming more aware. Since we've been in COVID, it's just been a whole different dynamic as far as grief and loss. And, there's really no timetable for healing from grief. You really have to, and, I always say it's hard if mourning will ever stop, for some of the losses that we've experienced, but we can move forward and heal from that when the time is right. But we have to keep progressing and have people in our life and professionals to go to help identify where we are at, because we definitely feel the anger, we feel the depression, we feel all of those stages, but they're not put in the context.
Yeah.
Like clinically, like, okay, you are dealing with depression because of this. This is what we have to do, ABC, okay? See a doctor, see a psychiatrist, see a therapist, possibly look short-term medication to help you through. And it's not a permanent thing. And I think our communities to embrace therapy instead of asking people instead of keep asking what's wrong with people, let's ask them what happened to you.
Okay. Trauma informed.
So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, trauma informed care. That was a good way for me to tag right on. Trauma informed care. It also ties into emotional intelligence, people being mindful of what cues they're picking up from people, the feelings, the emotions. And so I think in a lot of scenarios, you're asking friends and family to know their friends and family who are grieving, be able to say, okay, this is not normally them, and be okay with that silence, like you were saying. We are conditioned to do a lot of talking. So when these things are happening with grief, it makes people feel uncomfortable because they don't know what to say. And it's almost like you have to give them permission to not say anything.
Right.
Say, hey, I just need you to sit. Or hey, can you just come and be in the house with me? You don't have to say anything. It always surprises me at how many people show up in the beginning, and in about 2-3 weeks after the services, you may get a phone call, or you'll hear people say, I was just waiting for you to call if you needed something. Why does that person have to call you?
Right.
That's my take on it. If you were really concerned, just call. If they don't answer the phone, leave the message. If you're able to get in the house, go check on them. Go clean up the kitchen for them. Drop off some groceries. Pay a bill. Hey, do you want me to take the kids out for lunch so you can have just a quiet day to yourself? It really is okay to attempt to interject yourself in those moments. Don't try to fix or remove them from the grief process, but be okay with saying, I'm here. I'm just letting you know I'm here. Okay, not today. I'll give you a call next week, because they're going to appreciate your consistency and your level of involvement. Do not leave them saying, hey, just call me if you need anything. They may never call you. And they may be suffering in silence. So please keep that in mind. And pay attention to behaviors. I just want to say, reinforce and emphasize what Chris was saying. Pay attention to the changes in behavior. If you see them drinking more, if you see them really isolating to the point that windows aren't open, it's dark in the house, hygiene is being impacted. Like if you feel like it's getting to the point where there's a high level of impairment in multiple areas, you may have to support them in getting some help. Like we say, grief is your process to go through, but you do have to pay attention to what people may be saying out of concern. Be open to that, especially when they're saying, okay, now I'm worried. Do we need to go and speak with someone? I'll go with you. So there are some different levels to all of this as well. We're not saying just sitting there and do nothing forever. If it gets to that point, please be willing to talk with someone.
And I think it goes along with what Sharon and Chris were saying. Like I put me and the kids in therapy so quick. We've been in therapy. We're almost about to hit a year, and we've been in therapy the whole time. And my son, who's in Maryland, he's at Fort Meade. He finally called. He's like, Mom, I think I'm ready for therapy. So I'm on, Psychology Today, trying to find a therapist in Maryland. He was like, Mom, I want somebody in person. And Maryland was struggling with getting people in person. So he's still, because he was the one who was away when Dad passed. So he came in for the funeral and popped right back out. He's been on his own ever since, as a 22-year-old Black man in the Army, right? And that culture is already toxic. So, that was one of the first things I think I did. I just put us in therapy so fast, and we've just been in it ever since. So
I wanted to comment on something Dr. Sharon had mentioned about checking on people. And I know in this
go with it, Sharon, go with it.
Oh, okay. Hey, yeah, walk in that. Go ahead. Don't worry about it. That's what I felt. But in this time when like so many people experiencing loss with COVID and the normal loss, I try to share with those close to me, like it's time, like we got to show up.
Yes.
Like the long arm type of relationships, I sent you a text, and we got to show up. Like it has to be different. And I mean that in the most loving way, like I know I'm a busy person, and people we know who are busy, people just think you're busy. I mean, from their heart, I didn't want to bother you. And I'm like, yo, I'm struggling. I was struggling. Like, don't assume. I'm literally, I thank God I'm at a point where I can get ahead of it for those I love to say, yo, if you send me a text and I don't respond in a normal way, just copy and just resend. I need it. I don't think I'm busy all the time. Sometimes I'm, you know, just alone in my own thoughts. And I'm saying this because I know many people feel this way. It's like, I'm not calling them. I can't. I think it, my heart, but sometimes there's some kind of block. I know you professors can probably talk about that. You think about reaching out, you just don't get to it. And but then I have an abundance of people, you know, I'm super blessed for it. They are relentless.
Yeah.
People that's been in my life all my life to new people. They're just like, thank God. And I don't say nothing. I just like, hey, what's up? They have no idea what that little text or that little voicemail and this is a whole nother thing for those that are spiritual, you know, and I learned through different classes. Like, I had a problem reading the Bible for grief. Yeah. For some reason, I couldn't get to the word. But Jovita, I'm just here to tell you, people send me the word.
Yeah, look, they were sending it. Ken, they were sending it to me, and I was like, "Don't send me that. I ain't in the mood. I don't want to hear it. You better take it somewhere else. Stop. You can pray for me, but don't pray with me. I ain't in the mood." Like, I was, and I had to tell them. I was like, "You don't want to talk to me today. I'm spitting fire. Trust me. Like, it's real. Like, don't come at me today, because you know, like y'all were saying, like you were saying, Queenie, like you just 1 second away, you know, and they mean well, but you just like." You know, no, I'm gonna text you and let you know I'm okay. Because if you call me, I might not intentionally offend you, but so I get it, Ken. But like, and my main reason for saying that is that the comforter will comfort you. You just gotta allow it. It might not have to be in a traditional way you've been doing it all these years. That word gonna gets to me in all kinds of ways, and I'm just so grateful because what I've been trained to do, grief. Who thought grief would, and I had a minister tell me, like, this is part of grief, you know what I mean? But God got you, you still get it, you know, and when it's not overbearing, where it's just supportive type of scriptures, and, you know, it's not about grief, it's just more about scriptures for me, which is, I probably needed that anyway. But anyway, I wanted to share that with some of the listeners. Thank you, Ken. I received that too, Ken. Thank you.
Yes, keep that on.
I wanted to also add one of the things not to do is just when you are helping someone who's grieving, don't make it about you.
Right.
Just let the focus be on them. They don't have to hear, well, this is what I did. And this is what happened with so and so. Like we've all shared stories today. That's different because you asked us to kind of share a little bit and we elaborated to give people an idea of what we have encountered. But in those moments, if they're talking, just listen. We have 2 ears for a reason. Just sit and listen and let them talk, validate what's being said, acknowledge what's being said, and just be present, be attentive. Do not feel like you have to have an answer. You don't. They don't want your answers. Like Jovita said, I'm like, I've been in church all my life. I'm like, oh Lord, they send me, I don't want to read that. I'm not reading that today. Just let them be where they are. God got them. God got them. And so I think people just have to understand their place and how to show up. Again, just be in the space. You don't have to have the answer. Just be there.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Sharon, and for Jovita and Ken, of course.
Yes.
Sharon, you know, you are so accurate, so spot on with that. One thing I realize is that when and not, I mean, you know, I work in an industry where we deal with, you know, having to be trauma informed, and we talk about vicarious trauma, and so I get all of it, right? But I realize that some people are so uncomfortable with their friend or family member that's grieving that it's like they want to fill in the silence, and they want to push them into healing too quick because they're uncomfortable. And so I think one of the things I would love to share with those that are watching, and present company included, right, is not to expect people to process the pain the way you process yours, because we're all wired so uniquely different. And that's what makes each one of us so special. We process our losses totally different. And I think we sitting with that person in silence, unless they ask you for input or even advice or suggestions, just sitting, just being present with them, and allowing them to be okay, not being okay. It's fine. Here is your space. This is safe. I'm not judging you. It is okay for you to go through whatever it is you're going through, but no, I'm here. Knocking on the doors, that stopped, right? The food coming stopped. The text stopped. The invites stopped. And I remember just being alone and dying with my kids around, and, you know, just going to work every day. That's the other thing, having to show up for the people every day, just dying. Because if I opened my mouth and tried to share when I could talk, I miss my dad, and crying and, you know, trying to get it together, everybody was uncomfortable. So I stopped talking about it, and I suffered and suffered until I met a stranger that allowed me to speak my truth. And I probably poured out to that person way too much, like so overshared. But in truth, God, the universe, the creator, this amazing entity that cares and knows all, provided me with exactly what I needed to save me. Because for those of you just watching Queenie today, I was not this Queenie 6 months ago. Even though you saw me on podcasts, I was fine with not waking up. I would tell you that because I need people to understand that people that look like me also grieve. People that look like me are perfectly fine with checking out. And I needed help. And I had a therapist. But I was grieving the loss of my father so bad. And I didn't know how I was going to face it. And it really, really took people creating a space for me to be able to say, I'm really not okay. I'm not the same person that I was last year. And I remember saying that. And I remember the stranger kept saying, I don't even know. They didn't know me last year. So they don't even know who I was. But they were fine with understanding that I wasn't the same person. And that person helped me to face my grief, face the fact that I was struggling, and in truth supported me when I was trying to close the door, or shall I say, open the door to living again. And it's important to be that person. If you are given that assignment, it's so important for you to be a good steward of that time.
That's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I know I said a mouthful, y'all. I'm sorry.
I'm still eating.
I was just talking to one of the ladies I started going to Grief Share at a different church I just found on griefshare.com. And my church was super, super great with helping me with that. But I needed Grief Share like right now, right? And so I Googled and the church came up. And so I just, she ended up getting me to Widow Strong after Grief Share. And I remember one day I was running out of Grief Share and I was just crying, and she's chasing me out of church, telling me about Jesus, right? And I'm like, I don't know about Jesus. I know about Jesus. I'm here in the church. And I texted the other day and I said, thank you for being that gatekeeper that God put in my life. Because if it was not for you, I would not have completed Grief Share and I would have not got to Widow Strong. So thank you for doing what God needed you to do, and you just played their part. So people like that, those gatekeepers that God put in your life, and like Ken said, just allowing yourself to allow these people to take care of you, right? And to just do what God has sent them to do. And now she's a great friend. I can fuss and tell her how I'm feeling and be vulnerable and transparent with her, just because she became one of my gatekeepers, you know?
Yeah, I feel you. I can do the exact same what you said, Jovita. I can fuss and I can show up any way I want to around this friend. This person is a friend, like a lifelong friend now, and I can show up and do anything I want because guess what? They saw me clearly in my most vulnerable moment, and they accepted it as what it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to just piggyback on what everybody said. It's so important to have those people in your life to bounce things off of, the right accountability partners, someone that's going to value you and your opinion and not going to judge you or throw you under the bus because you're feeling a certain way or you did something that wasn't the best. but as you're trying to navigate through, these stages, and I'm not sure how many people are familiar with the stages of grief, but I can go over that. I had that prepared if anybody wanted to hear, to kind of put yourself in context with where it would be somewhere you can understand. But yeah, that is something that we have to normalize in our community. Is therapy is good. You can't have Jesus Jesus and your therapist as well. It's a good combination because it merges the spiritual with the natural. And a lot of times what we can't see naturally, we can see through spiritual eyes, and what we can't see spiritually, we can see through natural eyes, because I believe God works through people, and he put individuals in the earth, equip them, train them, and for a time such as this. And Queenie, I remember your post earlier, you said about, Jesus and Lazarus, that combination. And his verse is the shortest verse in the Bible, and it says Jesus wept.
Yep.
Clearly, Jesus wept. So he felt the sorrow as well from somebody valuable to him, close to him, passing. And the humanity in those two words speaks volumes. And everybody jokes about, oh, what's the shortest verse in the Bible? Oh, Jesus wept. Yeah, but those are two of the most powerful words.
Right.
And, while we're going through these painful emotions, these feelings of dissociation, sensory illusions, things of that nature, dreams that, and it's something that I don't know if this has happened, but I have dreamed about relatives after they passed. And I remember my grandma passing, she was crying, and she said, I'm going to miss you guys, but I am okay. I believe in robins and butterflies visiting us. And whenever I see a robin or a butterfly, that means a loved one is thinking about us or is in around. I'm funny like that. And that's the way I've been wired. And I'm equipped like that. I'm like, okay, I seen another robin. Okay, a loved one must have been thinking about me or saying hello. I'm funny like that.
I think some of us can relate to that, though.
Yeah.
It's
I see a dove, and I see a dove. I'm like, okay, they all right. So that's just little things that keep me going, and as a professional helper, I also need help too. So I have a network of people that I bounce things off of, and people that hold me accountable. Because we're not all perfect, and we have to have that in our lives in order to be successful.
Yeah. Dr. Chris, it's something I'm so glad you kind of touched on, the butterflies, the birds, and in this segment right here, I can smile because this is a happy place for me when I go there. But the whole time I'm like, how am I gonna, in my heart of hearts, I know we're trying to get the one person, whether it's one of us or whoever watching, to help them. And I'm like, this might be too much, but I'm like, I gotta share this. And one of the things, and might be as far as maybe the last couple of years, the acceptance phase, but one thing I learned that, especially for those who are spiritual on any level, there is so much more that God offers us outside of church. And we know that, but it's times like this when it's like it's activated.
Is this right?
and I say that to say, I had to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I want my son here, and then I heard like a voice or something in my spirit was like, no, your son is here. It's just it's just a new type of relationship. It's not. And once I work on this daily, and once even with my mom, my dad, all my loved ones, and once I accept, okay, I don't like it.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? I have a new relationship with my loved ones. And you get enough people that you love dearly on the other side, I'm telling you, life is different. Because especially once you accept that, we communicate a different way. So first it was like, well, I don't hear from them, I don't see them, I don't dream about them. And then it's kind of like, so in my own selfish way, I'm like, come to me. And they're like, no, you come to me. You get on my frequency. Not
Mm.
physical frequency is what we are doing now, but I gotta at least be willing to accept in faith, Lord, take me, let me tap into that frequency.
Yeah.
And as I do that, I hear from them. I'm telling you, my mom is show up and as a hawk. You guys look up hawks. Rare birds, you don't see them. I see hawks all the time up close. I got photos, birds, butterflies. It's like it's a whole world outside of what we're seeing that we can kind of tap in and at least feel present. Sometimes it ain't about hearing them, when you feel their presence. And sometimes I just feel like, hey, what's up, son? You good?
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, Dad. Yeah, I see. You know, and it's something about helps you. That's so healing. And I don't need no one else's permission. I don't care if anyone else believe it. You know, it's like, this is mine.
Yeah.
And I'm like grateful that I'm plugged in. But what happens is now you tap in and you see all this other stuff, but you see how to navigate normal life. It's like almost a gift. You know, people are like, oh, how are you doing this? How are you doing? I'm tapped in. You know, you just hear that stuff. I'm tapped in or tap in, you know. It's a real thing, but you just kind of do it in faith. And at some point you'll really get there and you just start hearing it. You start hearing their voices and my son's name is Chuck, you know, and I got friends all of a sudden, like grown women get on the train and they wearing Chucks. You know, I'm like, what are you doing wearing Chucks? You just see different, like, I got you, son. I see. You know what I mean? So little stuff like that, you just see different, you hear different. You just got, again, you can't keep saying, come to me, you know, just like Jesus says, what? We got to go to him, right? Same thing, right? But anyway, that's a whole another thing. But I thank you, brother, for just cracking that door, because I'm like, how am I going to bring this up, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And again, it makes me smile because that's where I talk to. That's my happy.
You were able to bring it up because this is the space for it.
Yes.
You know, this is the space for it.
I was gonna get it somehow. He gave me the alley-oop. I was just able to get it.
All right. So listen. So I know that our time is drawing nigh. I know that Sharon has to go. Sharon, if the others want to just hang back for a couple minutes, Sharon, I want you to bless us with something before you go, because one, I honor you, and without you, I don't think I could have gotten through it the way I did. So I thank you, and I want to leave space for you to speak before you exit the stage.
I will share what we've all been saying all along. Give yourself permission to grieve, whether it is a relationship, whether it's a job, whether it's a move, whether it's a pet. Whatever it is, grieving comes in so many different forms. I know today primarily we looked at loved ones, but it comes in many different ways. And when you recognize it, don't try to rush the process. Please give yourself that permission to go through it so that you understand what's happening with your feelings, your emotions. Tap in, like Ken and Chris have been saying all along, tap into what's happening. Trust me, you never know. Your journey may end up being a blessing to someone else, just like Jovita and Ken are blessing us today with their stories, and Queenie, sharing about this journey, whether it's short or long. We all have an experience, and we just never know how we're going to show up for someone else. But give yourself that permission. You deserve it. Thank you, Queenie, for the opportunity to be here. I'm honored to be amongst such amazing people. Thank you, Jovita. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Look, Dr. Ken, because he just threw it out.
Right?
Don't look at that.
Yeah, right.
I done told y'all I'm tapped in, so you better.
I know you tapped in. Stay tuned. You never know. I might be up to something. So
Sharon's always up to something. Yeah, no, Sharon, it's an honor. I have to circle back to you at some point because I'm up to something as well, and I'm coming to you because I know I can, and I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely.
It was nice meeting you, Sharon.
Yeah,
Nice meeting you too.
Yeah.
I will get all your contact information so I can follow you guys.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that in the post that I have everything in place. Okay. Tell the family I said hi.
I will. Ditto. Bye, everyone.
Bye. All right, guys. I'm so glad that Sharon was able to join us. And I know it, like I said, the hour's drawing now. I don't want to hold anyone up too much longer. But grief, we can talk about this for the next 3 shows. And I
Agreed.
do
Mhm.
plan on having another. But before we do begin to wrap this up, Chris, I want to give you an opportunity to share the stages of grief, because I do want those that are listening that may not be, may not understand the way we do, right? I had to learn it, right?
Mhm.
All the college years, they're like, you need to know these, So,
Right, right.
so if you could share the 5 stages and what it just a little bit of what it looks like whenever you're in one of those stages. I think you may even have
Sure.
a plus 1 or 2 actually. So
Yeah, sure.
thank you.
These stages of grief were developed by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she was a psychiatrist, and she worked mostly in well, she was a progenitor of the hospice movement, as we see hospice today. She was one of the ones that pioneered that. And she identified and theorized 5 levels of grief. And many, like I said, many of these don't happen 1 to 5, but acceptance has to be the last stage in order for you to move on into like true healing and then finding meaning after the loss. And what I mean by finding meaning is keeping that individual honored in some way, shape, or form by honoring their birthdays, what their favorite food was, their favorite color, that kind of thing. It's important to do that and to keep their legacy and memory alive, going forward. So these 5 stages of grief, and I'll read them to you, and I'll kind of give a brief synopsis on what it is. First, you have anger, depression, denial, bargaining, and acceptance. And the first stage is denial, which your emotions are suppressed, and refusal to cry or pretend the event did not exist. And what I've noticed is many individuals are in the denial stage. They've experienced all the other ones, but people can get stuck in these stages and not move on to the next one. And this is where you start seeing the alcoholism, the self-medicating on different substances, that kind of thing, because they're in denial and they want to pretend it doesn't exist. So I need an escape. So the escape is, I'm going to drink alcohol, I'm going to smoke weed, I'm going to do coke, whatever. So that's just one stage. The next stage is guilt, which in the case the person holds themselves responsible for the events that happen. You end up being full of regrets, all of the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. What if I did this? What if I got there 5 minutes earlier? What if I was in town and didn't leave? That kind of thing. Oh, it's my fault. What was my part in this? You didn't have any part in that. And I always teach individuals that you had no part in people being, you may have had a hand in somebody being born. You don't have a hand in how they leave or when they leave. That is not up to us. And just putting things in context and perspective, because we have no control over that. And when you get to the acceptance stage, that's part of that. Mm-hmm. So another stage is depression or grief. Depression and grief. It's persistent feeling of sadness, loss of interest. You're miserable, down in the dumps, exhibiting physical relief, crying. And I always say that crying is something that cleanses the soul, pretty much. And if that is an emotion that we're built like that. If we're built to be angry, we're built to cry. Mm-hmm. And in our communities, oh, you're a man if you don't cry. I mean, you said you say you're a man if you cry. Well, I say you're a man if you don't cry, mm-hmm. because that cleanses your soul and it allows you to get in touch with your humanity. I just lost someone who was near and dear to me, and I need to express that in a healthy manner. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, I could do other things, but crying shows strength. Mm-hmm. Because I could go in that drawer and go get something, or I can go out in that car and get something, mm-hmm. and we don't talk about it no more. We just do that. But that's a sign of maturity, using what God has built me with to withstand this. So another level, and the level we've been talking about pretty much the whole day, is acceptance. After a time, you end up accepting the situation, and pretty much it's really, and I had another definition that was a little bit more concrete. And acceptance simply means that there has occurred a circumstance or an event that you cannot do anything about. You simply accept the event for what it is. It is totally out of your power to change the outcome. And many do not reach this stage. And you have to reach this stage in order to heal. And I know Ken was talking about, and I think Jovita, you were talking about it as well, about, hey, no one's listening to me. I just lost a loved one. And it's almost like Bessel van der Kolk in her book, and this is the book I want you guys to get. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. It's by
I'm actually
Bessel.
reading that right now.
Oh, wow.
I have that.
Okay. An awesome book.
I have it on Audible.
Yep, you can get it on Audible. If you have credit, it'll be free. If not, you can buy it. I have a hard copy and I have it on my devices. It's a very good book. And in that book, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk talks about speechless terror, which is the silent scream that you talked about, Ken, about how no one's hearing me, but I'm screaming out loud inside, but I can't articulate it. I have to get it out. And you know, she talks about that speechless terror, and that's exactly what it is. And this and what we're about to enter in, and we're entering in the trifecta of holidays: Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. We call it the trifecta of holidays because it's 3 holidays in one. And the issue is, a lot of people suffer loss around this time of year, or they suffer loss recently and they get along with their, you know, all their families at this time of year. So, you know, these times are really hard and difficult, but in perspective, as long as we're caring for our people, letting them know they're loved and they mean something to us, we're all going to get through this. And there's just some things in life you just can't walk through alone. You have to have someone come alongside you and lift your arms up. I think in the Bible, Paul got tired and his soldiers lifted his arms up.
Yeah, helping him carry that. Yeah, when he
help him carry that load. Like sometimes you got to have people in your life that can see things better than you can, and they can help you be strong by lifting your arms up. But if you want to think you can walk through this by yourself, it is not going to work. You know, you're going to alienate people. You're going to stay stuck in denial and anger, and you're not going to make it. You know, oh, I don't need therapy. I don't need to talk to the counselor. I don't need to talk to the pastor. You know, and I always say a lot of these faith-based organizations need to have someone either on staff or someone in their congregations that can help navigate and point people to help. Because I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of these pastors are not equipped to do any counseling.
Yes.
Because, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but they have to either have people on staff or somebody in their corner, like, hey, I got a guy you can talk to. I got a lady you can talk to. They can help you navigate this. It's okay to refer out, because we're all in a helping profession. We're all trying to get better. And so, I always say that, you know, we're in this season where, you know, COVID on top of the trifecta of holidays and losses. I mean, it's fresh in a lot of people's minds. And that's what I'm saying. We need to really check in on people around this time of year, because this is where depression is really, really heavy around this time of year during the trifecta of holidays due to losses of loved ones.
Thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So for those that may be watching or listen or will watch or listen, I just wanted to make sure that they understood those stages and what that looks like. And again, it still can look different for everyone. You know, personally, I stayed in I continued to blame. So I stayed there, the guilt, for a very long time, and depression. And denial, I didn't really hit that, because sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just
Right.
don't. You're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but you do have to face the acceptance, right? That's one that you have to hit, right? If you're going to move on, let me say it that way, because some people don't make it to acceptance and they choose something different. But if you're going to move forward and become better, acceptance is definitely on the path. But I stayed in the guilt, the blame, the resentment, the shoulda, coulda, woulda, the anger. I stayed there for a long time, and depression hit because of that. To Ken and Jovita, I just want to pivot and just thank you both for sharing space with me today, sharing space with those that will watch this in the future, because these videos live on for a very long time. People will continue to hear your story. And so I want to just, excuse me, thank you both. And of course, Sharon and Chris, thank you for being support for this conversation. This wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And for those that are listening in, and because this will be on podcast and YouTube and all these other places, but grief will find you. It will. It will. And I just want you to be prepared in some type of way, with an understanding, knowing that it's coming. It's around us, our friends, our family, we're all dealing with it. And it's not a bone that would just reset. Can't just cast it up. It's not. It's a part of grief, and it's part of life, and you can't necessarily avoid it, right? So I just really hope that something that we're saying here, we have said, will take hold of you and be part of your journey to recovery and to managing and to handling whatever you may go through, because it's going to come. So with Jovita and Ken, I would love to give you an opportunity to share any thoughts, any last thoughts that you may have with those that are listening. Then you can take the floor right now before we begin to close this up.
Yeah, I know for me, there's not a day that don't go by that I think about the woman who becomes a widow today, which is why I do what I do, which is why I'm vulnerable and transparent and willing to share my story. To have your whole life interconnected with one person that is no longer there, regardless of how big your community is, the loneliness and the isolation can really take you to a mental place that is so hard to get out of without that community. So for the widows, the woman that becomes a widow, and for the wife who is transitioning to become a widow, please, please, please get connected. Please go to therapy. Please talk to your pastor. Please do not feel that you can transition from a wife to a widow by yourself. It's not an easy journey. So I pray for those sis who are becoming widows, and know that you don't stand alone. We are here with you.
Thank you so much, Jovita. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think first I just want to say, thank you to my family, who has been like a huge support for me, and to all the people in the community, and like church and pastors, and all the people who's been there forever, and everything you've done to get me to this point. And I still got a long way to go, accepting that it's a journey. Because I still have those tough days. And one thing I did want to share is what helps me is, when grief come down, it come down, and I let it flow. And it's something about, even in that hill, and I'm in the supermarket, I'm just crying.
Yeah.
I almost wish somebody would say, "Why you crying?" Right? So I could use, share, and who wouldn't get it, right? So be free in that, and to just let it fall down wherever you are. And something about the car too, right? The special things happen in the car when it comes to grief. A truck go by and go, and then you're done, right?
Yeah.
It's just random stuff. But as I thank everyone who's been checking on me and won't let me go, and everything's a season. Everyone's not there for the long haul. They was there in the beginning. I thank you. Those who was there last month, I thank you. Those who are there now, I'm so grateful. But with that said, and Chris, you kind of mentioned it, I just encourage everyone, especially in this season, this is a tough season for me. Like Thanksgiving and Christmas, I gotta get ahead of that thing. But check on each other. Send that text. The time of just the loose relationships with close ones is just, that's not enough anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's just not, it's different. COVID, we got a lot of loss. And I'm even when I went to my therapist, because when other people lose, I got to make sure I don't take it on because I'm so raw. I'm like, God forbid I hear somebody on the news lose their child. I'm like, I can feel me wanting to take it on. I'm like, no, I can't, you know, but you know, I even asked my therapist, like, how is the industry handling? There's not enough therapists, you know, to the point we need regular folk to help regular folk, right? Because I know you're burdened, brother. You know, you and your profession is too many people.
Too many.
So I just say that to encourage people. If it falls on your spirit, reach out. To those that know me or heard of me, if my name comes across your mind, you do whatever you got to do to send me a text, shoot me an email. That all that is real. It ain't even about you being weird. Just do it, and because I try my best to do it. You know, when some people, even in my current state, and I'm dealing with stuff from COVID vaccine, and if you come across my mind, I'm gonna text you just to say hi. And I might not have nothing else after the hi, but I'm gonna do it. So check on each other. Show up. That's it.
Amen.
Show up that's huge. I want to piggyback real quick, and I'm going to wrap this up. Kim, when you mentioned the car, many people have heard me tell my story about the car with my father. The hardest thing for me to do after his death was get in it. And he lived in Philly, and I was in DC, in the DC area in Northern Virginia. But every day for almost 20 years, I called my dad in the car. Let that sink in. When you hear that, for every day for almost 20 years, I call my father every day. We probably went about 2 years where we called each other every other day in the car on my ride to work and on my ride home. That was married or unmarried. My dad was the phone call. Every car that I got into, every car I bought, Dad rode with me, right? So when he passed, and after my mind became clear that he was gone, and I was having to now get into my car, I remember the first process was getting in the car, driving out the same place every single day. When I would get in the car and call him, I reached over to hit the button. And I remember sitting on the side of the road, and I cried, and I turned around and went back home. Could not go to the appointment. I couldn't go. Because riding in the car reminded me so much of my father that I didn't want to get into the car. And it went from that to riding in the car for about 3 months in absolute silence because of the guilt that I felt filling in the space that was created for my father and I to talk. So imagine that 3 months I rode with nothing on, couldn't. Because I felt guilty because that was our time.
Wow.
I couldn't talk to him even just in spirit because I couldn't drive and cry. So I had to figure out, how am I going to navigate? So I would just ride in silence. So you made me think about that, Ken. And so if anyone's listening, know that when you have these things that you think are weird, these things that you think people would never understand, people like myself, Jovita, Ken, Chris, Sharon, we do understand, because many of us have been there or we've seen it. So I want you to walk away with nothing more but knowing that you are unique. Grief is unique to you. It is okay to be grieving. Figure out whatever it is you're going to need to get through this, and you hold on tight to that. Don't lose hope. Hold on tight to that. And yes, you may need to allow a stranger to come in. You may need to allow a stranger to sit down with you.
New people.
And chase you down. Look, Jovita, and chase you down with Jesus verses. I mean,
yes, right.
You never know. You may need a stranger to come in and start being creative with you. I mean, that's what I needed. I'm a creator of a lot of things, and and all of that had died. And God sent me a stranger to wake it up and to allow me to see different, see life in color again. But it was because I was in a space to receive. And I guess God said, hey, this is your time.
You're ready.
So for
You're
those of you that's listening, I just want to say this again. Grief is unique to you and to anyone and everyone that's dealing with it. We are wired absolutely different. So how we process it is going to look different oftentimes. Grief affects everybody differently, but grief affects everybody. Grief is natural, human, it's predictable, unpredictable at times, and unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's all of the things that we feel in response to a loss. And when we suffer loss, a loss of someone that's really close to us or not, but a loss of a loved one in general, loss of a thing or whatever that things that we're connected to, it is natural for you to grieve. As Sharon said, please give yourself permission to do so. It is okay. Guys, I just say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
This
for
is-
taking
Thank
on
you.
this tough topic and wanting to
Yeah.
have this discussion, you know, so thank you for that, Queenie, you know.
Yeah. I
Yes.
want you
Thank
guys
you.
to know that if you ever need me, I am here.
Yes.
To
Likewise.
listeners, if you need any of us,
Yes. Same here.
I'm sure you can tap in to us. I will make sure that I put all of our information up in the official post from YouTube. So to all of you that's listening on Facebook and that will watch this on YouTube and all the podcasts and IG or wherever you are, thank you for joining us. And I left the National Grief Support Groups hotline in this, left it pinned in this chat on YouTube, on Facebook. So please get it. You got to reach out or you have to allow people to reach in.
Yes.
Mhm.
We're going to get this, as Dr. Rowland says, we're going to get to the side of this thing. And I believe that. So thank you, Chris, for showing up,
Yes.
You're welcome.
for giving us
Yeah.
your, giving
Thank
us
you,
the word,
Chris.
giving us the education
Thank
that
you,
we need and the
Chris.
encouragement.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you, brother.
Thank
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're
I'm
welcome.
going to stop my video from Facebook, guys. So to my Facebook family, thank you again, it's your girl Queenie. Continue to follow me with the relationships on the podcast. Stay tuned. I have a lot of amazing things happening. And all this is happening on the other side of grief. So I'm thankful because my father is the gift that keeps on giving. So because of
Wonderful.
him, I am doing the great things that he's always cheerleaded me for. So I'm thankful. So continue to follow us. And for now, we're going to sign out of Facebook.